Marcus Chen had perfected the art of the exit. 5 minutes, that's all he ever gave to these obligatory blind dates his grandmother, orchestrated from her retirement, home in Palm Springs. He'd check his Rolex twice, fabricate an urgent business call, and disappear before the appetizers arrived. At 34, as CEO of a tech empire worth billions, his time was currency, and he'd learned that most people only wanted to spend it. Tonight would be no different. Table 7 at Meridian, the restaurant he'd chosen specifically, because he owned it and could leave through the kitchen. His driver idled outside. His assistant had the fake emergency queued up on his phone. Everything was choreographed down to the second. Then Emma Walsh walked in, and his 5-minute plan began its slow, irreversible collapse. She wasn't what he expected. No designer dress or calculated elegance. She wore a slightly wrinkled yellow sundress and sneakers, actual sneakers, to a 5-star restaurant. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she carried a tote bag that said, "Dogs are my favorite people." When the host led her to his table, she was already apologizing. "I'm so sorry I'm late. There was this situation with a dog. There's always a situation with a dog in my life, and I know this is awkward, because your grandmother showed me your picture and you look like you'd rather be literally anywhere else. And honestly, same, but I promised I'd try. So here we are." She said all of this in one breath before collapsing into her chair with a laugh that sounded like wind, chimes in a thunderstorm, unexpected and oddly perfect. Marcus blinked. In 3 years of blind dates, no one had ever been this honest. Look, Emma interrupted, pulling a breadstick from the basket with zero pretense. "I know how this works. You're successful. I'm sure you're very busy. And your grandmother means well, but probably thinks showing up is the same as caring. So how about we eat some bread, chat for a few minutes, and then you can go back to running the world or whatever it is? CEOs do at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. Deal?" He should have left. The exit was right there. But instead, Marcus heard himself say, "What situation with a dog?" Her whole face transformed when she smiled. "Oh, you don't want to know. Try me. Okay? But don't say I didn't warn you." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "I run a dog sanctuary. We take in the ones nobody else wants. The old ones, the sick ones, the ones with 3 legs and bad attitudes. Today, one of our newest rescues, this ancient beagle named Humphrey, decided to stage a prison break. Found him 4 blocks away, sitting in someone's garden, howling at their ceramic gnome like it had personally offended him. Despite himself, Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time that had happened? Your job is chasing escaped dogs? My job is giving forgotten souls a place to matter, Emma corrected gently. But her eyes were warm. The dog chasing is just a bonus. She paused, studying him with an unnerving directness. What do you do that makes you check your watch every 45 seconds? He'd been caught. I build software. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, that sort of thing. Ah, you make the things that are supposed to make life easier, but somehow make everyone more anxious. It was such an accurate assessment that Marcus actually flinched. That's one way to put it. Sorry, that came out harsh. I'm sure you help people. Do you help people? It was a simple question, but it hit him like a freight train. Did he? His software was in millions of devices. His company's stock price made headlines. But helped people? He couldn't remember the last time he'd thought about it that way. I provide jobs, he said finally. Employment, economic growth? Emma nodded slowly, like she could see through every corporate buzzword to the hollow space beneath. That counts. But does it make you happy? Happiness is a luxury. No, she said softly, breaking another breadstick in half and offering him a piece. Happiness is a choice. It's just a really hard choice to make when you're scared. I'm not scared of anything. The words came out defensive, sharp. Everyone's scared of something. Emma's voice held no judgment, only understanding. I'm terrified of thunderstorms, failure, and the fact that I'm 32 and still haven't figured out how to keep a plant alive for more than 3 weeks. But you know what I'm most afraid of? Becoming the kind of person who stops trying, who stops showing up. Marcus looked down at his watch. 7 minutes had passed. He should go. He should activate the plan, make the exit, return to his penthouse and the emptiness that waited there like an old friend. Instead, he asked, "Why do you do it?" "The sanctuary. It can't be profitable." "Profitable?" Emma's laugh was softer now, tinged with something that might have been sadness. "I'm broke, actually." "Really broke. The sanctuary runs on donations and my stubbornness. I work 3 other jobs: dog walking, pet sitting, weekend shifts at a veterinary clinic. My apartment is the size of your closet, probably. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years, and I'm happier than I've ever been." "How?" It was the first genuine question Marcus had asked another person in months. Maybe years. Emma was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the white tablecloth. 3 years ago, I was engaged to someone a lot like you. Successful, driven, always working. He wanted me to give up the sanctuary, said it was embarrassing, that I needed to grow up and get a real job. The day before our wedding, I was at the sanctuary. And this old pit bull we'd just rescued, everyone said he was too aggressive, too damaged, put his head in my lap and just trusted me. Despite everything the world had done to him, he still believed someone might be kind. She looked up and Marcus saw tears shimmering in her eyes. I called off the wedding. Everyone thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But that dog taught me something my fiancé never understood. The most valuable thing you can give isn't money or status or the perfect life plan. It's showing up for someone who needs you, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Some carefully constructed wall he'd built brick by brick over years of success and isolation. "What happened to the dog?" he asked quietly. "Samson? He's asleep on my couch right now, probably dreaming about the steak I definitely couldn't afford, but bought him anyway for his birthday last week." Emma smiled, wiping her eyes with her napkin. "Best decision I ever made, that dog." 23 minutes had passed. Marcus's phone buzzed with the fake emergency. He silenced it. "Tell me more," he said. "About the sanctuary." So she did. She told him about Humphrey the escape artist and Three-Legged, Sally who thought she was a lapdog despite weighing 90 pounds, and Olive, the blind senior golden retriever, who had just been surrendered by owners who didn't want to deal with her medical issues anymore. She spoke with passion and heartbreak and joy, and Marcus realized he was listening to someone. Describe their purpose, the thing that got them out of bed every morning, not because they had to, but because they couldn't imagine not doing it. Somewhere between the main course and dessert, they'd stayed for both. Marcus found himself talking too. Really talking about the pressure, the loneliness at the top, the creeping suspicion that he'd built an empire but forgotten to build a life. About his grandmother, who'd raised him after his parents died, who was fighting cancer now, who kept setting up these dates because she wanted him to find what she'd had with his grandfather. Someone who chose you every day, not for what you could provide, but for who you were. "She sounds wonderful," Emma said. "She is. She's the only person who tells me when I'm being an ass. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you've been a little bit of an ass. The whole 5-minute plan? I could tell the second I walked in." Marcus had the grace to look embarrassed. "How?" "You positioned yourself facing the kitchen exit. You barely made eye contact when I arrived. And you've checked your watch more times than you've probably checked the actual 8, but..." She reached across the table, her hand hovering near his. "You're still here. That counts for something." He took her hand. It was calloused and warm, the hand of someone who worked with their body, not just their mind. "Come see it," Emma said suddenly. "The sanctuary. Tomorrow if you're free. I'm not asking for a donation or anything, I think you need to see it. See what matters." Marcus should have said no. He had meetings, obligations, a company that needed him. But looking at Emma, really looking at her, at the hope and kindness radiating from someone who had every reason to be cynical but chose joy anyway, he found himself nodding. The sanctuary was chaos. Beautiful, messy, life-affirming chaos. Dogs of every size and shape, each carrying their own story of abandonment and resilience. Emma moved through them like a conductor through an orchestra, knowing exactly who needed what, when. Marcus watched her comfort a shaking chihuahua, wrestle playfully with an overexcited mutt, and sit in patient silence with an elderly dog too tired to play but desperate for company. "You want to help?" she called out, and he did. For the first time in years, Marcus Chen got his hands dirty, literally. He filled water bowls, threw tennis balls, and let himself be covered in fur and drool and the kind of unconditional affection he'd forgotten existed. When Emma found him later sitting in the grass with Samson's head in his lap, she didn't say anything. She just sat down beside him. "I want to help," Marcus said. "Really help. Not just write a check, but show up." Emma studied him carefully. "Why?" "Because I've spent 10 years building things that don't matter. And 5 minutes with you made me remember what does." She kissed him then, soft and sweet and tasting like hope. 2 years later, Marcus stood in that same spot, surrounded by dogs and friends and his grandmother, cancer-free and crying happy tears. Emma walked toward him in that same yellow sundress, grinning like the woman who'd changed his life by simply being herself. He'd sold his company, restructured his life, and discovered that showing up was the most important work he'd ever do. The sanctuary had expanded. They'd saved hundreds of dogs. But more importantly, Emma had saved him. "You're late," he whispered as she reached him. "There was a situation with a dog," she laughed. "There's always a situation with a dog." "Always," she agreed, taking his hands. "Think you can handle forever?" Marcus Chen, who once measured life in 5-minute increments, smiled at the woman who'd taught him that the best things in life couldn't be scheduled, couldn't be controlled, and could only be found when you stopped running long enough to let them catch you. Forever sounds perfect.